The Babylonian number system is one of the oldest numeral systems at around 5,000 years old, yet it still has its influence in our own world today. So the number that we're going to talk about today is 60. What do you know that is counted in groups of 60? 60 is kind of a big number, so you may not use it a lot, but you do use it when telling time. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. But why 60? Why this random number 60? Well, it all comes back to the Babylonians. Thank you, Babylonians. Because what they wanted back then is a very nice number that divides quite easily. So if you think about the number 60, what divides it cleanly? So 60 is divisible cleanly by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In fact, it is the smallest number divisible by all of those numbers. But why is that important? Because you can take a half of it, a quarter of it, a fifth of it, a third of it. You can divide 60 up into a lot of ways. So if you're, say, cooking in this space, you can cook with lots of fractions, which makes it easier to cook a quarter of a meal, or a half of a meal, or a fifth of a meal. If you're telling time, you can have a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 3/4 of an hour. You can even have a half of an hour. It all divides 60 very nicely. And when you don't have a computer, you need a number that you can divide nicely, so you get nice round numbers at the end of it because they're easier to work with. What base do we normally work in? Base 10. If 60 is so nice, why do we use 10? Well, the idea is that we use 10 because we have 10 fingers. And as a child, you would just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 fingers. It's actually thought that the Babylonians were able to count to 60 on 2 hands. Because you see, they would use every single knuckle on the fingers. And they would count like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And on this hand count one set of 12. And then they'd start over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 sets of 12. And again, and again, and again, until they got 5 sets of 12, which is 60. So not only is 60 highly divisible, but you can use it on your hands. Can you think of anything that isn't measured in groups of 10 or 60? So when the Babylonians were working with this number 60, they also were great astronomers. And what they found is that the year is pretty much 360 days. So that's the length of time that it takes for the Earth to go in a full circle. And that's why the circle is divided up into 360 degrees. And further, each degree is divided up into 60 minutes. So you can actually have an arc minute, which is a 60th of a degree. And that further is 60 arc seconds of that 60 minutes. Because the Babylonian system is base 60, many people thought they needed to learn a lot of special number symbols because our own decimal system has 9 special symbols and a 0 to denote an empty space. However, rather than have to learn 10 symbols as we do to use our decimal numbers, the Babylonians only had to learn 2 symbols to produce their base 60 positional system. They had this that denoted 1 and this symbol for 10. And so all Babylonian number systems are in the cuneiform script, which are formed by pressing a square or triangular end stylus into soft clay that would later turn into a tablet or something similar. So one mark, like this, represents 1. Another one represent 2, 3, 4, and so on through 9. The pattern that you would use is to use rows of 3. So 6 would be represented like this. So you would do 1, and then 2, 3. So that's 3, and then you would come underneath that and do 4, 5, 6, and 9 is 3 rows of 3. Now, if you were, say, counting to 4, you would do 1, 2, 3, and then a big one underneath for 4. The 10 was formed by turning the stylus like a 30 to 45 degree, which ended up in a web shape, and much like this one here. Again, so like multiples were also formed in sets of 3. So if you had 30, it would be 3 10s in one row. 60 is another 3 10s in another row. And the cool thing about cuneiform is that there's no largest number in cuneiform. So this system can be adapted for numbers as large as you need. Like it's a positional system, and so it works much like our own with place value. So like the third place in the Babylonian number system is equivalent to the hundreds column in the decimal system. So the third column would be for 60 times 60, which would equal 3600. So the number 21320 in Babylonian would represent 2 times 3600 plus 13 times 60 plus 20, or 8000. Now let's watch a few videos and complete some activities.